So I'm a little giddy and starstruck because I follow Pierre. First time we've ever met. Handshake in front of you. Yeah. Nice to meet you as well. I enjoy how he has formatted this presentation. I also enjoy his views on Bitcoin. Can't wait to listen to you.
Awesome. So who am I? I co-founded the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute in 2014. Go to nakamotoinstitute.org to see a lot of different early cypherpunk writings to the white paper to things that have been written afterwards, including by myself. I co-host the Noted podcast, which I started last year with Michael Goldstein. So go to noted.org or just search for it in any podcast app. It'll be there. I created BitcoinAxe.com, which helps Bitcoin core developers with managing pull requests. And so there it's about reducing friction in the development process and helping Bitcoin development along. And I recently founded Bitcoin Advisory, which is all about talking with institutional investors to educate them about both the investment case for Bitcoin and then the underlying technology of Bitcoin.
Quick question.
Yeah.
I'll change the slides for you. What are you doing tonight, by the way? That was a difficult part. Forward. Oh, no. Oh, it's in here.
Oh, yeah. Well, what, you mean the topic of the... Yeah, well, so I just want to introduce myself so I have some credibility with this tough audience. Yeah. And I have a few Twitter bots, so please follow them. I'm very proud of them. Bitcoin Merges lets you know what has been merged into Bitcoin. Bitcoin Confirms shows you every single block and some stats about it. And then GDAX is just the GDAX price. So Bitcoin Maximalism, is it dead yet? So Vitalik says yes. Bitcoin Maximalism is now considered contrarian. It shows how the pluralist multi-currency vision has already won. So Bitcoin Maximalism is over. But maybe only 2/3 dead. He did concede that for unit of account, having one money would be more practical than having your balance sheet denominated in multiple different currencies, which with my accounting background, I can tell you isn't actually even possible. You always have to convert to one currency to present your financial statements. Okay, yep. What is Bitcoin maximalism, right? If we're going to try to figure out whether it's dead or not. First, we have to start with what is Bitcoin. There's actually now multiple competing definitions of what Bitcoin is. So one very small minority of people on the internet think that Bitcoin is the portfolio of different cryptocurrencies that you would own if you had bought BTC before a certain arbitrary date. And so that means that Bitcoin's BCH plus BTC plus whatever other Bitcoin Gold, whatever other forks. And then the second definition, which I think has a lot more credibility and a lot more people use it, is that Bitcoin refers to a specific currency and a specific network, and 80% of people approximately believe that that is BTC, and then 20% believe it's BCH. Now, I won't go into the Bitcoin Cash hard fork and the controversy there, but I think that everyone would agree that that's kind of the state of play over the definition of Bitcoin. And then what is maximalism? I think that there's three different kinds of maximalisms that get confused. There's kind of platform maximalism. The best example of that is Ethereum, which is that, hey, we're going to build everything on top of this money and decentralized network. And there are proponents of platform maximalism among every cryptocurrency. So for example, in Bitcoin, you have people talking about Rootstock, which is a smart contracts platform. So, or they're talking about like drive chains and side chains and everything, colored coins should all be based on top of Bitcoin. So I think that currently, in terms of which camp is promoting this form of maximalism the most, it's the Ethereum camp. And then you have payments maximalism, which is that all payments should be on the blockchain, on-chain, and the diehard fans of that are in the Bitcoin Cash camp. And then you have the monetary maximalism, which is the idea that there's going to be a money that's going to emerge from the world of cryptocurrencies that is the reserve asset and that other cryptocurrencies are valued against. And I think that represents BTC the best. So those are the three different kinds. Yes, there are Ethereum maximalists. I found Eli Duardo, so he's wrote a great Medium article that actually explains platform maximalism very well. And so go read it if you're interested in learning about Ethereum maximalism. But what I'm talking about today is Bitcoin maximalism. I just wanted to point out that maximalism is not specific to Bitcoin. You can apply it to any different cryptocurrency or platform or decentralized network. Each kind of maximalism has three questions attached to it. What are the theoretical arguments for saying that your network is going to dominate? What are the network economics that would justify such a view? And then how do we empirically validate it? And what are the investment implications? I think that's like the most important question for people who are interested in seeing their investment do well, which I think has motivated a lot of people who have entered this space. Is to make money. So we've got three debates about three kinds of maximalism. So we've got a total of 9 debates going on. And the problem is that arguments are being made where you're trying to respond to this debate, but then they bring in an argument from a separate debate, and it's all like gets confused because it's very convenient to kind of move the goalposts and change your arguments during the debate so that you can ultimately prevail in the epic Twitter war that you've engaged in. Another problem is motivated reasoning or arguments that your reasoning is motivated. So everyone who is arguing about Bitcoin maximalism or against, or about Ethereum or against, ultimately they probably own one or the other or both, and thus are going to have some financial incentive and some skin in the game, but also perhaps be overly emotionally attached to their position and thus not be making entirely rational arguments. So I want to focus on Bitcoin's monetary maximalism, and the kernel of it is liquidity begets liquidity. And so how do we bootstrap liquidity and get it started? With Ethereum, that was subsidized unregistered securities, and with Bitcoin, it was subsidized drug payments. And so these have been highly effective ways of bootstrapping each respective network's liquidity, and they're both illegal, they're both unsustainable, and they both have diminishing marginal returns. So at some point, the bootstrapping process is over, and your money needs to be competing in the market for monies on its own merits, and not just based on what got it to have value in the first place. So that's okay for bootstrapping. After bootstrapping, what really matters is your monetary policy, the credibility of that monetary policy, and the Lindy effect. So the Lindy effect is a concept Nassim Taleb popularized, which is basically that the longer something is around, a durable good is around, the longer you can expect it to continue to be around. And so I think that on all 3 points, BTC has the best monetary policy. It has the most credibility of its monetary policy, and that really got proven last year when they tried to do the 2x hard fork, and that fell on its face. And then it just default wins the Lindy effect because it was first. So now we see that currently Bitcoin undeniably is the most liquid crypto money out there, and it's more than twice as liquid as the second runner-up, which is Ethereum. So that's very recent. I think it was in Bloomberg like a couple weeks ago. So is Bitcoin maximalism dead? I think that from a platform maximalist point of view, yes, because everyone's building on top of Ethereum, and that's attracting the developers and all of that energy. From payments maximalism, yes, not because of Bitcoin Cash, actually, but I think because of the Lightning Network. And so I think most of the payments, or at least the promise of payments, and the anticipated adoption of retail payments of Bitcoins, which hasn't occurred to date other than like niche areas, that's going to be on Lightning and not on chain. Although ultimately we do know that Lightning is anchored to the chain. And then monetary maximalism is not dead yet, and that's my final point. So if you want to contact me and argue about this with me on Twitter, at Pierre_Rochard, or you can just email me.
Two-question limit. Make sure it's a great one.
What determines a good monetary policy?
So my view is that it's all about having a hard cap, and so Bitcoin has a 21 million hard cap, and then having an aggressive early distribution. And
What's the goal of monetary policy?
right, so there's the mainstream economics perspective, which is that the goal of monetary policy is full employment and low inflation, right? And so that's great. That works great for the US dollar. I think that the problem with that approach is that it cannot compete with a deflationary monetary policy. And so gold is inflationary enough because when the price of gold goes up, people go mine more gold. You can't do that with Bitcoin thanks to the beautiful difficulty adjustment. And so I think that a currency whose monetary policy's goal is to have a stable value is ultimately going to be defeated by a currency who doesn't care about that and just focuses on having a limited quantity and thus is appreciating in value and attracts investors and doesn't inflate.
One more question, last one.
Any thoughts on if the key persons associated with these projects, right? So, for example, if Satoshi appears that, here's my million Bitcoins, I'm flooding the market with these, what's the impact of that? And by the same token, Vitalik, on the other hand, says, you know what, I'm fed up with Ethereum, I'm quitting this, good luck, right? So how do these key people and their actions influence
Yeah, so Satoshi's coins account for about 5% of the existing Bitcoins today. So if he dumped that on the market, obviously that would cause the price to crash. Would it crash to 0, or would it crash to 1,000 or to $100? I have no idea. So I hope he does that experiment, and so that'll help clear up that question. Now, as for Vitalik, I don't know that Vitalik would have any effect on the price of Ethereum if he decided to go do something else. I don't know that he even works on Ethereum very much today.